Breakfast Table with Kyle Brandt, familiar faces, and Peter Schrager, Nate Burleson, myself, Kay Adams. This is our show. It's a good one. Lots of news to get to, too.
A lot of news to get to, but it's also, in some senses, the most wonderful time of the year. What am I talking about? Playoff scenarios are taking shape. What does your team need? Whether you're a Cowboys fan, a Bears fan, you need to win out, you need your rival to lose, you need 3 wins by the Red Wings. It gets really complicated. Schrager's always really good at breaking it down, and these two teams we're going Thursday night are right in the thick of that. Also, guys, if you follow this program, you know it's Wednesday. You know P. Schrags is breaking down the coolest plays of the week, including maybe the coolest play of all time. And then Adams over here breaks down the longest plays in game show form. The long show. Cool plays for Opa. Hey, job opening. Guys, and we have the most Good Morning Football guest ever. How about a gentleman who's played in some of the most iconic games of all time, is in the Chargers Hall of Fame, a Walter Payton Man of the Year, and he hosted Wheel of Fortune. Rolf Benirschka, yes, we said it, is in. Look at the single bar. Oh, my God, what a show.
We're also going to get you set for Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
The Cowboys going to Chicago to take on the Bears at Soldier Field. That playoff picture that I study harder for to learn than thermodynamics in college, which I actually never took. We'll get to all of that, breaking it down. But we have to start also in the NFC, but in Carolina, where Panthers owner David Tepper announced the firing of head coach Ron Rivera. After 9 seasons with the team, Tepper was asked to explain the decision to move on from Rivera, and he sat down with Bill Voth to do so. Take a look.
A very hard move. Ron Rivera, besides being a good coach, is one of the finest men I've ever met in my life. I'll just say that up front. Look, I came here 2 years ago. I wanted to show patience on the football side and see how it was going. On the business side, we made vast and sweeping changes. And I didn't want to make those vast and sweeping changes on the football side. I'm going to take time and patience to see what could go and how it could go. I just thought it was time, given the way things have gone the last 2 seasons, to put my stamp on this organization on the football side, as we've done on the business side of the organization. I think, as much respect as I have for Ron, I think a change was appropriate to build things the way I want things to be built.
David Tepper making it clear it was not a rash decision, something he had thought about coming off some losses, especially defensively to this season. Another losing season, another losing moment for them in that division as they have these second half collapses and all sorts of stats to support this. But Ian, well, you're here with us this morning. What can you tell us about this decision, what went into it, and what's ahead?
Okay, this basically came down to the Carolina Panthers deciding after 2 tough losses, especially one to the Redskins, which obviously nobody wants, that Ron Rivera was not the man to lead their football team going forward. In the eyes of David Tepper, the fact that he decided that yesterday meant he had to move on. The reason I say that is because what teams do right around now when they know they're going to fire their head coaches, they start the process of very quietly calling candidates, doing research, making background calls, trying to figure out who would be available, who would potentially want this job, what kind of candidate they may want. Tepper did not want to do that while Ron Rivera was employed. In his mind, Rivera is just too good of a guy to have to hear about secondhand the Panthers doing background work on someone to replace him while he has the job. So yes, you'd love every coach to finish every season, but instead what the Panthers did was call him in, had a face-to-face meeting with Ron Rivera and David Tepper, informed him that he would not be retained. Rivera gets to move on. Actually, he's going to meet with local reporters later today, and then Tepper and a very close-knit group in the business side and the football side are going to get together and try to find a new head coach for this football team.
Now, speaking of that, Ian, finding a new head coach, what are the next steps that the Panthers will take in search for their new head coach?
Well, in this very small committee, they're not going to use a search firm, but it's going to be all internal for David Tepper and for those in the Carolina Panthers organization. Tepper dropped a couple hints yesterday about what they're looking for. He said football, just based on the rules and the way it's trending, kind of leads more toward an offensive head coach. It does seem like that is the direction that they will probably go. He said he would consider someone brilliant, extra brilliant on the defensive side of the ball. And obviously we know, guys, teams generally hire the opposite of what they previously had. So it does seem like this is probably going to be an offensive guy, someone innovative, someone who has the use of analytics, someone who is forward-thinking. These are the types of things that David Tepper is looking for, and he now gets a full month to go ahead, to look at some candidates, to contact people, maybe even interview people who are not employed. Mike McCarthy of the Green Bay, formerly the Green Bay Packers, comes to mind. They can lay it all out and be ready for when January hits to kind of hit the ground running.
A Super Bowl appearance, two-time Coach of the Year, 9 seasons there, winning the heart of the entire city. It'll be big shoes to fill for Carolina. Thank you so much, Ian. You'll be with us all day long. And a lot of people are pointing to Cam Newton. What is he thinking? How is he feeling about this decision? Well, he took to Instagram himself, posting this photo on his Instagram story. We'll be forever grateful because of the impact he had on my life. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you for believing in me. I can go on. But most importantly, thank you for allowing me to be me. Thank you, Coach Rivera. This one hurt deep. Peter, you've been all over this for the past 24 hours. What's going on?
Yeah, I've spoken to people on both sides. Let's start off with Ron Rivera, the man. I spoke with him last night. He's in okay spirits. He still wants to coach. He's not done. This is not some retirement. And I think Rivera is going to have an opportunity moving forward. This is a guy who got things in order in Carolina when they were at their lowest point and brought them to 3 straight playoff appearances and, of course, has won Coach of the Year twice. Ron wants to coach, and if you're outside the Charlotte market, you might not realize how big a fixture he is in that market. Yeah. He and his wife, Stephanie, have been all over every philanthropic event. And remember, Coach of the Year, obviously football stuff, also Super Bowl. And his house burned down in Charlotte. Like, he's been through life stuff. So David Tepper was not just saying that for the cameras. This is one of the best men you'll ever meet. Obviously, he is going to be a fixture in the NFL moving forward. He's going to be okay wherever he goes next. Let's go to the Panthers side of it. You guys got to know who David Tepper is. David Tepper is looked at in Wall Street and in the finance world as one of the biggest, I want to say badasses in the entire history of finance. Right. Like, Appaloosa is his hedge fund. He only started a hedge fund because he was passed over somewhere else and said, you know what, I'm going to start this. He was banking $20 billion in a year. And, like, it's always been forward-thinking, aggressive nature, and putting his stamp on things. So this was not going to be a passive owner. Yeah. He came in here, he bought this thing for close to $3 billion. You don't buy something to sit in the back seat and say, okay, let's go. So he gave it 2 years. He says, I'm going to lead this thing. And to Ian's point, he's not going to lean on a search firm. You know, he's not going to go to some other person and say, hey, who do you guys recommend? No, he is going to be hands in and hands dirty and boots on the ground. Fascinated what the next step is here. But make no mistake, the reason Tepper fired him with 4 weeks left was because he has too much respect for Rivera. Didn't want him twisting in the wind and saying, hey, what's going on with my future? What's all this? Brought him in, so we're going to get this done now. You don't need to hear if you're on the hot seat for the next month on Good Morning Football. So Rivera's out, Tepper's in, and I'm fascinated. I don't have an answer who that next coach is.
And quickly, we are going to be hearing from Ron Rivera. He's holding a press conference this morning. Even that video, that sit-down, this all feels sort of different with the way this goes. Why is that?
Yeah, you very rarely see a thank you Instagram post to a head coach who's fired in season. You very rarely give that coach an opportunity, unfiltered, to speak to the local media. I think they have enough respect for each other, and this was handled well enough. No one ever wants to get let go, but handled well enough where they trust the fact that Ron Rivera can go out there, speak with the media, and not throw everyone under the bus. I actually think it's unprecedented in how well both sides are taking it.
I think it's also interesting, if you know anything about David Tepper, his whole mantra is, I will not accept mediocrity. And he's a businessman. Businessman is not about necessarily philanthropy and all the things you do in the community. It's about winning. And over the last 4 years, the Panthers have been mediocre. I was not surprised that they made a change. I was surprised at the timing of it, though, for it to happen like this. Surprised, and I absolutely loved it. What we are now is you start this insipid crawl towards the end of the year with back-channeling and secrets and BCCing all the way to this morbidly named Black Monday, and you know the guy's gone. This, to me, seems like, let's be honest, you're in a relationship you're not happy with, and it's a pre-Valentine's Day breakup. It's not necessarily kind, but it's probably best for both parties involved. And I think in this case, when you're choosing your guy, Nate, sometimes people want to choose happy.
Yeah, you want to choose happy, and it's good vibes, right? Even though Rivera's fired, I feel like there still is good vibes out there. But it's funny, though, we were talking off camera, and I said, okay, Tepper, getting involved. And you said, well, you don't spend $3 billion not to. And I can appreciate that. I mean, what we're seeing nowadays is the football side and the finance side are inextricably intertwined. And it's going to be that way moving forward, because when it comes to running an organization, yes, you want to win a Super Bowl, but you also want to put butts in seats and make money. Was I surprised? No, because I understand this is a results-driven business, But with that said, I was always told you never judge a player when he's injured. So if you take that and you apply it to this organization, you can't really judge a team when their superstar has been injured for 2 years. Yeah. So it's tough, because on the finance side, I get it. I understand the business of it. Yeah, it was time for Rivera to go. But on the football side, I'm like, man, he didn't really have a fair shot. as a player, I'm upset. But what I do know, just like you said when we started off talking about this, Trags, Rivera's going to land on his feet. He's a sought-after coach and well-respected in this league. Just look at his record. The
league is going a different way. Offensive, like you heard, the hint from Ian Rappaport that Tepper's looking that way. Is there room among head coaches, not specific teams, but for Ron Rivera, his skill set, his defensive mind, his, veteran status in a league that is skewing young, offensive dynamic?
Yes, 100%. Because even if you're a defensive head coach, the pressure isn't on you to get involved in offense. The pressure is on you to properly delegate the different position coaches that you need. And then what you see is successful defensive head coaches hire young genius minds. And I use the word young loosely. It could be an older offense coordinator. As long as you have a smart play caller, the head coach can be a defensive mind. It doesn't matter to me.
I look at Brian Flores in Miami, and you might say, oh, they got 3 wins, but like they're building something from the ground up. He's a defensive-minded coach, but when you're the head coach, you're also kind of the CEO. I think Rivera and I can't look. I thought Mike McCarthy would get a job last offseason. I can't say for sure he's going to get a job in X city, but I think if he interviews, he comes with so much experience that if you got a messy house, he cleans it up. And if you hire the right offensive mind with him, he's going to let him run that offense. I think he's a very viable candidate in markets that just need some cleaning up of some slop around what's going on in football.
If I was representing him today and everyone wanted to point to McVay and LaFleur, I would point to Andy Reid and John Harbaugh, of these old generation guys who gotten their groove back and got a new offense. Be like, I can do this too, and my players love me. Have you seen the tweets from Greg Olsen? They love me, and they'd be hired in 5 seconds.
Do you expect this to be an emotional press conference there in Charlotte?
I do.
Today?
I think Ron will get very emotional in this. I think also the camaraderie and the love he has for the local media there. They've been harsh on him. They've been harsh on him, but he's always been transparent and open and honest with them. I think there's a lot of heart in that relationship, and I think you'll see it today.
Can we also say Blackman was excellent talking about this. She's very close to the team. Her Peter always on the ground there, talking to Ron Rivera throughout his tenure there, 9 years there. Tiffany's been there for a lot of that, so we'll have her on the show to give her thoughts on this as well a little bit later in the show.
And I just want to say, we love Ron Rivera as a show. The 4 of us. I mean, he's